My name is Navaratnam, CEO and principal broker with Fidus Mortgages. I'm here with Kubes from Nava and Lou from Metropark.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
You want to give a short introduction of yourself and Lou as well?
My name is Kubes Navaratnam. I'm the managing lawyer for Nava Wilson Professional Corporation. We're a real estate practice. We do estates and litigation supporting real estate as well. We've been in operation for 12 years. Have a team right here in Markham and 401.
Perfect. Lou, please.
My name is Lou Katsavos. I'm a broker for Metropark Realty, Inc. We've been the main broker for Green Park since 1988. I've personally been selling pre-construction projects for about 23 years myself, so I've seen a lot of changes in the industry and a lot of trends, and it's just you never stop learning, right? So just got to be ahead of the curve there.
Perfect. Amazing. Lou, Kubes, thank you for being here. I think we can get any better in this discussion. We got a real estate lawyer and someone who works on the pre-cons a lot and now is one of the hot topics of what's happening in the pre-cons, what's going on with HST, how this make changes, so that we're going to have some insight of, we're going to deep dive into it. So look, what are you seeing in the pre-cons?
So, I mean, we definitely, you would see across the board the spark in interest when this announcement made about this potential rebate. It helped out the main issue that we're facing, which is affordability, right? So a lot of people were interested, but they weren't exactly clear on what exactly it is. And unfortunately, in the industry, a lot of us aren't even clear on what exactly it is, how it's going to be administered, and so on and so forth. But the good thing is there is an opportunity to make things more affordable. And that's in the end what we really want, because that's what's going to truly spark activity. It's helping people make decisions that they may have not been so eager to make as of, let's say, 2 to 3 months ago. So there is that renewed spark. With that being said, buyers are still extremely cautious.
How is HST is changing the new construction, new pre-con space?
So typically what has happened is the government's given a $24,000 rebate on the HST for anything that's pre-con, whether it's principal residence or if they're using it as a rental property. It's something they apply for after the fact in the case of it is a rental. And typically what happens is the builder fixes that rebate into the price of the house, so that when the CRA provides that rebate, it goes to the builder. That's typically how it's been done. Now, my understanding is it's going to work in a way similar to that, just in a larger amount, depending on the purchase price of the home. As we know, anything that's pretty much up to 1.5 is subject to a $130,000 rebate. So it would be the 130 minus that $24,000 rebate in reality. Then anything above the 1.5 mark to, I believe, the 1.85 mark, it kind of tears down to the minimum amount of $24,000 once you hit that 1.85 mark.
So we are having a lot of conversation. Me and Kubes, we talked a lot as well. Some of the builders are not reducing the prices. So they are building into the price. They deal with this at the closing.
Correct.
Then we talk to the lawyers. They have no direction from the government or the builders. Is it going to be even applicable? So Kubes, how are you feeling it when you're reading the agreement? Or when someone purchases a pre-con from our builders and they're coming back to you and say, have 10 days. Please take a look at it and say what is going to be happen and give me advice. So how are you navigating through and advising your clients? Because there is no clarity from either from the builders, because they don't have a clarity from the government of what's happening. So I think this is a great discussion for all parties. What regular clients, they are confused, like what's going to happen to Manchester.
Yeah, great. To add on to Lou's point, I think the word of the month is going to be confusion, right? I think we had to Lou's point on the legacy. We had a legacy HST rebate program, which had a federal component and a provincial component. The federal component capped out at $450, so it's not even used anymore, because where do you find a house that's for $450? But the provincial component was always used, and that was the $24,000. So the advertised, just to go back to people, for a lot of people might not know, the advertised price by a builder is the net price, which is the regular price, times HST, 1.13, less the $24,000. So when you see an advertised price for $1,130,000 or $106,000, the actual price of the house is $1 million. times 1.13, which is 1,130,000, and then less rebate. The builder's going to assume you will qualify for the rebate, and they're going to assign that rebate back to them. That's the general framework in all agreements in the legacy, right? And so if you don't qualify for the rebate, the builder will expect you to, or if you're applying for the rental program, the rebate program, the builder saying, we don't deal with that. You bring that money on closing, and then you apply directly to the rebate if you're eligible. And builders thus far in the rebate, because it's only a carve out of a certain cases, the builders and the builders' lawyers are very particular in qualifying you for that rebate. If they sense any sense of that you might not qualify, they'll reject the rebate. Even if you qualify, then you'll have to apply for it yourself. So it's a cash flow issue in most situations, not a issue of whether you will get the rebate. So that's been the legacy program thus far. And to add to that confusion, the federal government brought in a first-time home buyers program last year. That first-time home buyers program offered the full 5% back to you, but you couldn't interact with the builder. You had to bring that money in, close it, and then you apply for it yourself. So the builder wasn't
nothing to do with the builders.
The builders weren't in all that because there was no directive to the builder. So the builder said, "Listen, you guys and the government directly deal with it. We're not going to get involved in this because it's such a unique scenario, first-time home buyers only, and the process wasn't brought out yet." Now, add some more confusion. The provincial government is expanding their original legacy 24,000 rebate. So that rebate is now anticipating the full 13% to come back for a year's period, April 1st, 2026 to April 1st, 2027. So in that time, anybody gets a contract with some particulars about construction date, you get now up to 13% rebate, which is not a small amount. 24,000 on $1 million represent 2.4 million, 2.4%. Now you're getting 13% back.
That's significant.
That makes a difference of whether somebody's going to be able to afford to purchase a home or not, right?
I think this is going to be a market mover in some level, because that is significant enough for builders now to absorb some of that loss, buyers to get a discount, and to have some movement. But the problem here is sort of the announcements and the eligibility got out, but the operational how to do hasn't got out. So that's where the builders don't know. They're putting a lot of warning clauses in their documents because they don't know. And so the question now is, when I've read about 5 different agreements since April 1st, the builders are, one thing is clear, because the builders don't know, they're putting all unstipulated uncertainties on the buyer. So if this doesn't happen, and rightfully they would, if I was a builder's nowhere, you don't have direction.
And really, that's sorry to cut you off, but that's exactly, how these agreements are prepared, right? And it's, and that's the truth of the matter is, the builders are going to angle their agreements of purchase and sales because they have to protect themselves though too, right? Because, and especially with this instance, nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen. And that's the reality of it, which leads to, more confusion in the market. Mind you, there is excitement there, but again, there also is, confusion to add to that for sure.
Yeah. So let's deep dive into it. So what are you seeing in the market trends after this? And let's get into logistics, but what are you seeing in the mindset, how the builders are approaching it, how's the target or at the end users, you see a shift in the market after this happens?
I mean, there's certainly more interest on the buyer side of things if the product aligns with what they're looking for, right? Especially people that are aiming towards that $1 million mark where they're looking for their first townhome and that sort of thing, right? So of course it's something great for them. It's going to help them qualify, but again, there's still that uncertainty of, okay, what are they going to get and how it's going to work? But it's making them a little bit more excited about purchasing. So you are going to get a lot more inquiries and that sort of thing. Now, will it turn into paper? Yes. But again, there's still people that are going to be very cautious about, what's happening as well.
So we have a live example. I spoke to Kubes about it. Client purchased a property from the builder for $900,000, closing on July 2nd. The realtor promised the client he's going to get the credit back. So then I asked for the agreement of purchase and sale. We assumed the builder is going to drop by 13% is at the closing. Kubes had a chance to review the purchase. I don't know if he had a chance to review that or not. What the client is making a purchase thinking he's going to get a 13% back. And this is not in a year from now, it's 2 years from now. It's actually happening right now, closing on July 2nd. If he got into it, he may not have to pay the money out of the pocket, if I'm not mistaken, Kubes.
So there's builders are approaching this in multiple ways, and I think it's going to end up what Lou said. I think by the end of this, maybe in a couple of months, where when all builders kind of figure out what the market is saying, because nobody knows. There's not one body that's saying, "Hey, everybody act like this. Everybody do this." So
Everybody's doing something different.
everybody's doing something different. So
Very confusing word.
Very
Very
confusing.
users for clients.
exactly, I've seen some variations of how builders are reacting. I can explain. I've seen variations where builders have two prices for a unit. So two prices. One, if they're involved in the absorbing, this was early on, they're absorbed in the all-in price, and one for you to apply for builders. Because of the first-time home buyers plan is also available, some people prefer them applying themselves, taking a chunk of money at the end of the day, bringing it back for closing costs and post-closing costs. So, but now what I'm seeing a trend, and in the interim, I've also seen an assumption that you will get $24,000 and the purchase price is given on that assumption. And if you get more, then they will adjust accordingly, credit accordingly on closing. But the one that I'm seeing more, and I think I will see more of, is similar to the legacy plan, where the builders have put all the prices in. They're assuming that you're going to get 13% full rebate. And if you don't, then you have to bring that on closing, which is now for buyers, that's nervousness, right? Like, because the builders aren't flat out saying you will qualify. In their schedules, they're saying there's so much outstanding and government has to come into play. And if you don't get the rebate, you have to bring that to closing. So telling a client that you have to bring potentially $130,000 up to $130,000 on closing if you don't qualify, the first question they ask is, do I qualify? And for that, we can tell them theoretically you do, but what could be the operational issue?
So you're a deal killer.
I'm trying not to be. I'm trying not to be a deal killer, but it's a point.
Yeah.
It's going to
It's a
get
very
to
valid point.
It's going to get to, because the government announced it, then the builders had to react to it. Because builders don't have clarity, their lawyers are saying don't take any risks that you can't take on. And now, so taking those verbiage and talking to clients, we become I'm trying not to be a deal killer. I've talked to one agent he said, listen, if I get qualified for this price, it's $837. If I get qualified, I don't have to bring extra money in, I'm good. But if you are telling me that I have to bring 24, 130K, I'm even okay to bring in 24K. But if I have to bring in 100K, this is not a deal for me. And even though theoretically, I know that this legislation was made to move new units, and so most likely he will get that credit. As a lawyer, I also have to tell him the risk. And as soon as people hear even the risk, even if it's a small chance, the brain looks at that risk much bigger than it is. So it's a hard decision for buyers to take that burden on right now because of the uncertainty.
And this is what I try and do too, right? Because I mean, it's easy to, praise the rebate and all that stuff. But if it's not 100%, like maybe at times to my detriment, I'll tell people, like, listen, this is what it is. Now, whether, somebody will qualify 100%, there's a risk involved there, right? Like, I try and give out as much of the facts as much as I can, right? So, because we have to protect ourselves all too, and we want to make, purchasers feel comfortable in that, to make sure that they're comfortable and okay and qualified, for that matter, to take that transaction.
Just to add to that, if you look at the intent of what the legislation provides, right? The federal one last year provided specifically focused on first-time home buyers and helping them out, right? That was a first-time home buyers help, obviously for new builds. This one, there is no first-time. First-time home buyers get it. Second-time home buyers get it. Investors get it. So what is it really trying to do? It's trying to move new home inventory. So what the government is signaling, hey, go ahead. We're going to give you this rebate. We want this market to move. We want builders to be moving their product. We want buyers to buy it and get the market moving, which is really good for all of us. However, because operationally, we don't have this worked out yet. But this interim, you're going to see a lot more uncertainty from buyers because the buyers have to make this ultimate decision.
There is that question mark. There's always going to be that question mark until once it's truly passed. And then people can, really see, okay, and be more comfortable with that purchase or making that decision for that matter. I think once we get some finality as to what is happening, how this is going to happen, then you're going to really see an uptick in all that product, especially in that price point.
And you guys have a very tough spot. Like your sales staffs are confused and they can't even answer the question to their clients.
It's a challenge. So that's why you just try to inform yourself as much as you can so that you can be clear and concise with them. So you got to present all the facts. Obviously, you have to sell, but at the same time, you got to make sure that they're okay with the potential risks that can come of making a purchase there too.
This is my biggest challenge, right? On $1 million mortgage, if you're getting a 13% back, that's $130,000. Like if you're getting the credit from the price, your monthly payments are dropped by $600. Versus getting a credit, you purchase a property, yes, you can make a lump sum payment, but that doesn't mean the mortgage get amortized, reduce the monthly payment as well. So it's also for some of the buyers becoming an affordable issue as well.
Yeah.
Yes, they get the money, at the closing. Is it going to make a changes in the monthly payment? Probably not.
And one other point to touch on as well is I think everybody is kind of uber focused on this full $130,000 amount, right? The other point of uncertainty lies to the amounts that go above that 1.5 mark up to the 1.85, because there isn't a true way to find out specifically how much of a rebate they will be getting, to my knowledge. And so let's say somebody purchases a home that's at, 1.75 net of the HST, of course. How can we calculate exactly what they're getting back in terms of a rebate? Unfortunately, I haven't, I don't have that information to my knowledge. I don't know if anybody else does either. So when somebody comes in, it can be a challenge at times where they might not know exactly how much of a rebate they would get if they are purchasing above that gray zone of the 1.5 to the 1.85.
There's a lot of confusions around. And as a lender, we also kind of navigating through what's actual real prices. If there's an amendment happen, the appraisal may come in $130,000 low. If a different, like in the same area, different builders are selling on a two different way of selling it. One of them is minus HST, and then some of them say claw back. What's the real price of this property?
So the ultimate, I think, after this confusion, hopefully in a few weeks, ideally that we get some past this confusion, I think the ideal situation is going to be that the builders have now stabilized. They've absorbed most builders have absorbed the new HST rebate in calculating their prices. They're now advertising at one price, and the buyers have to make a decision now. Is this price worth it for me? And it's going to be like the old legacy where likely, hopefully, the decision is not that whether I get that rebate, because I will get that rebate. It's already included in that price. And is this price worth for me? The difficult decision, second difficult decision that has to be made is not that whether you'll get the rebate, but whether you get the rebate at closing with the builder. Or you'd have to kind of apply for it by yourself.
That's when you need to come with the funds.
Cash flow as well. So it's one is does the price make sense for me now? The rebate is not a consideration because I'm not going to pocket that in my hand. It's going to be assigned to the builder for him reducing the price. But second consideration I have to make is if I do get the rebate, but the builder's not part of that process, because just like the rental rebate, can I have the cash flow to bring that? So these are the two tough decisions I think the buyers will have to make unless there's further clarity from the government or builders.
That's a really good point you're bringing up too, because in an ideal situation, it's going to be handled similar to how it was previously with that $24,000 rebate, because then on your statement of adjustments, that rebate's going to be factored into the purchase price, which in turn is what you're ultimately qualifying for if you're using it as an end user, for example. And then you know what you're working with in terms of, the rental rebate and applying for that afterwards. So, like I said, in an ideal situation, it's going to be handled the same way. But again, we still don't know. We still don't know.
What is you're seeing in the pre-con?
I'm seeing there's still movement. And it all depends on specifically the product and the pricing. Now we've seen there has been a cool down certainly in the high rise product, and I think it may even lead to some sort of overall of how that product is produced and how it's made and what it entails. Because before, over the last I would say probably close to 30 years, the focus was on investor type units, making something smaller, so in turn they can rent it out. So that's why you're seeing a little bit more of an influx of builders creating purpose-built rentals, so they can angle that. But for somebody to use or purchase a condo as an end user, I think the trend eventually, and I could be wrong about this, is to look for a little bit more space, as opposed to seeing the 400 square foot micro condos for that matter. I find the one segment of the market that's still okay, there's challenges everywhere, but the more active segment are more of the entry level freehold or podal type townhomes. Something that's going to be under that $1 million mark. If it's in a good area, people will buy. It's still going to attract the investor. Maybe not necessarily somebody that's flipping per se, but an investor that's looking to rent out, or that first time buyer for that example. So if you're in that kind of like sub $1 million mark in an ideal pocket, you will still see movement there. Where I find there might be a little bit more challenges are on, a house that would, the house I guess that you would call something like a family would move up into, where they're relying on the proceeds of the sale of an existing home. So that's another area where there's a bit of uncertainty, right? Because you're in the market, your family's growing, you need that extra, garage space, so on and so forth. So you're ready to make that jump. You see the purchase price, it's fair, you can do it. But the question mark is, okay, it's fair and you can do it, but it's based on a purchase price of what you think your existing home is worth. Now, who's to say what that home is going to be worth 18 months from now? That's where the uncertainty lies. I mean, that's what I find. And buyers got to be realistic of what their expectation is in regards to what they'll be able to achieve on the sale of their existing home.
Where are the builders seeing this? Like, I'm being hearing, I don't know about the low rise. On the high rise, there's no more projects happening. You think eventually this is going to create a demand and supply issue, like to the point there's no pre-cons happening in the low rise?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's something that's gonna happen immediately. I think with a lot of builders and developers, right? They're going to be holding off on producing certain type of product that they know they're not going to be able to.
The market shifted, right?
Yeah, the market shifted. The cost to build is still, extremely high, so it makes it really difficult for them. So maybe they're gonna sit it out for the next little while and just see what happens, and then. Unfortunately, that industry is going to be in a bit of a holding pattern until they see some sort of spark in interest and that sort of thing.
I don't know if you can answer this question, or if you can. There's a lot of challenges on closing the deals that clients already been purchased. And how are you, as working with the builders, how are you a team navigating through those challenges for the buyers?
It's a tough one to address. We have to look at every
Every scenario is unique.
Every scenario is different, and it's got to be handled in a certain way, right? You'll get some builders that will, whether they have to provide a rebate, everybody handles it in a different way, right? I can't speak to one specific builder or another, and every situation is different too. Maybe they have to do some sort of rebate on closing, or they take the risk of terminating that agreement. Mind you, they have received a deposit, but then are they gonna be able to sell for that initial purchase price minus the deposit they collected too, right? So it's really tricky, and I think it's just it works as a case by case scenario. I wish I could have been a little more clear on that one, but it's really a really tough one to navigate there. But it is a challenge that everybody's seeing daily.
Where are you seeing the transaction happening right now? Under $1 million? First-time buyers?
Under $1 million.
And are they first-time buyers, most of them, Ayalu?
I would say in my experience over the last, let's say, year or so, you are getting the first-time buyers. You're also getting people that are downsizing as well, or people for that matter that just grew out of that condo, and they don't have a choice. They need to get that space. So when you see that sub $1 million mark, it's appealing. because it might be a little bit easier for them to come up with that down payment, because, as a first time buyer, I don't know a lot of people without getting help and so on and so forth, coming up with that 20% down.
And we also feeling a lot of first time buyers are skipping the condos and they're going through more towards townhouses or stack homes.
Yes.
You see that trend in your world as well?
Yes. Listen, the stack townhome is a very unique opportunity for people to get into the market, not only end users or first time buyers, but also investors as well.
More than a condo.
At this time, yeah. Because there is a negative stigma with the condos. And at the same time, too, when you're in the market to invest in something that's pre-con, you got to remember the other question, too, is you're seeing condo projects get canceled. And when that closing realistically isn't taking place for another 4 or 5 years, it just leads to that much more uncertainty as to the completion, what's going to happen. At least with the stacked, it's a product that can turn around a little bit quicker than
not a
your
high
typical
rise.
condo. It's not a high rise. A stacked, if they get started on it, it's something that can be completed a lot quicker than you would see with a high rise.
Before I get into the last question, Kubes, I work with a lot of realtors. The realtors are part of this group as well. You work with the realtors as a co-op agent
Yes.
in your Green Park?
Yes. Typically, it's a trend that's happened over the last several years in terms of low rise. Like they are really taking on that co-op model, because when I first started, it was, the agents weren't really marketing the projects because the builders weren't necessarily cooperating with. So they were kind of gearing their buyers to buy more resale stuff. And then when the condo market truly blew up and you saw that model with a lot of investors buying condos and were bringing their agents in, then you would see the condos, offering co-ops, upwards of 4%, sometimes even more than 5%. Once the low rise market heated up, that was something that the builders kind of adopted. And then that's when you saw a lot of co-op platinum agents, whatever you want to call them. They were getting first dibs on a really hot project that people were waiting for. They do these broker events and so on, so they get first dibs on it. And, the builders really, they just kind of work in that co-op amount to whatever it is into the purchase price. It gets absorbed into their cost, and they're selling up projects and they're getting notoriety while they're doing it.
So it's an additional option for their clients as well, right? Who needs that kind of product. Kubes, you want to mention anything about what you're seeing in the pre-con world?
Well, I'm seeing it from clients that are coming in, and the last 3 weeks, I would say this has been a lot of changes just in the 3 weeks. We as lawyers have to be ahead of that curve because we're reviewing and advising, and with this uncertainty, the easy thing to do is, hey, there's a lot of risk, but that might not be the right thing to do. So we're trying to get information from builders. We're trying to get information from our mortgage brokers,
and also builders lawyers as well.
Lawyers as well, and we're getting out in the market and talking to brokerages and partners to figure out. It's a collective knowledge. It's a collective knowledge that we have to put together, because when we advise the client on the risks, there are 2 things that are of risk, which is, one is, will you get this rebate qualified? And for that, obviously, there is the uncertainty of the government not finalizing everything yet. But there's also uncertainty of the product itself, which has limits on construction start, construction end. So if you buy something and the builder delays till the construction, and what happens then? So you got to think through the elements. Second is, because it's such a big amount of money, even if you get the rebate, is there going to be a cash flow issue? For example, just like the rental rebate, would you have to bring that? So but we have to turn our clients' minds to both of those risks. And it's such a big number that it's not an easy risk to.
That's a big number. If they had to come with the funds up front, that will be a deal, and that could probably put some of the closing on jeopardy as well.
Exactly. But I think what most people are saying is that because this is such a big chunk of the market price, that at least this will help with some moving the market.
Once the clarity,
which I think is in favor for builders, for people in the market, for buyers, everybody. Everybody's waiting for the market to move, because if the market doesn't move, that's more of a damage to all of us than just this difference in procedure. So hopefully we get clarity sooner than later, and that hopefully starts making this product a lot more attractive.
I think what I understand is, correct me if I'm wrong, man, a great product, great incentive. We just need to figure out the operation side.
Exactly.
which is everyone's input.
That's exactly what it is. Once we're able to figure it out and get some sort of direction as to how it's going to work and so on, get a little bit of clarity, and like you're talking about the different options there, then we'll know. Then we'll truly feel the actual effect of what's going to have the impact of what's going to happen. People know about it now. They're asking a lot of questions, but we still don't know 1000%. Once we know, then you're going to see what's going to happen. And I anticipate it's certainly going to help once this actually passed.
That's going to make a big impact and a positive impact on the pre.
Absolutely. And definitely more so. There was another just point I wanted to mention as well. Definitely more so on the low rise side of things, because there are timelines involved in terms of when it's applicable for certain start dates. So to my knowledge, I believe it's beginning of 2028. Like construction has to start by then, which helps the low rise stuff, because typically, depending on the status of the project, once they get registration, then you're able to have a shovel in the ground before a date like that. High rise is a little bit trickier though too. So I think
Because
that's
the permits are very complex. Anything else you want to add, gentlemen?
I mean, I would say my message to the buyers here is while you're going through this, understand that your real estate professional won't know. The builder might not know. And in many cases, unfortunately, the lawyer might not know. And that's not a
So
good
who knows?
signal. The idea is collective. It's a collective discussion. So, for example, I had a discussion yesterday with one of our buyers, and it was just the idea is, okay, here's all the risks in fund. What is it that numbers wise makes sense for you? What risk tolerance can you take? What risk tolerance can you not take? And then that led a discussion to the mortgage broker to understand what's the ability that he can do for this product. And then finally, we had to have a collective discussion to say, okay, here's what the risk that you're gonna take. You got to take that. It's a market where we do it, and what is the likelihood of the rate? So it's a lot more deeper discussion than our old reviews, where it was more so cap this, cap that, change this, and then you're done.
It's a
right?
completely different
It's
conversation.
a completely different conversation.
And this not a chat GPT
Yeah,
conversation.
definitely not.
exactly.
Don't rely on ChatGPT for this, because
Yeah.
everybody's gonna get problems.
This is you need a real legal advice.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you want to leave with the audience, Lou?
I think it's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of people that are sitting on the fence, because people have been sitting on the fence for a long time. If you do see something that you really like and you're about to do it, exercise caution, absolutely, and understand the the potential risks that are involved. And if it's something that you want to wait to see and feel a little bit more comfortable, my advice would just to see once it actually passes.
And it's going to be
itself.
soon. It's not going to take too long.
Let's hope so. That's what I'm hoping for there, right? So I mean, it will help if they're on the fence. It all depends on cash flow and what they're going to be able to be approved for. So you got to really take that into consideration. And then if it's something that you're a little bit more risk adverse, then wait till it passes, and then then it's off to the races.
Yeah, without my lawyer hat on, I think the ability for you to get this rebate, if you qualify within the time frame, is not a very minimal risk. It's not zero risk, but it's a very minimal risk, because the government, everybody wants this to move. So even though there's provisions of, hey, if the government doesn't do this and we don't get the certainty, and those provisions is what really creates the uncertainty, which then therefore prevents deals from moving. The ability to get the risk is a very small amount, not to get that rebate. The higher risk is the cash flow risk, potentially, if the administration doesn't happen streamlined with the builder. So it's more so that than the actual ability for you to get the risk, as long as you fall within both the timeline of construction and this rebate program.
Look, I have a lot of realtor friends probably watching this, and if they have any projects, so what are you working on right now?
So I'm currently working on a lovely low-rise project in King City called Triple Crown Estates, where we're offering detached homes on 45s, 50s, 60s, and 70-foot lots. It's a beautiful community over there, and if there's a product that you might be interested in that particular area, feel free to reach out. But aside from that, we got projects all over the GTA, and some great, exciting low rise product, and also some high rise product too. And if you take a look at the Green Park website, you'll see that there's a lot of opportunity out there for buyers.
What's the best way to get hold of you, Lou?
So feel free to reach out to me via email, LOUKATSAVOS at metroparkrealty.com.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here. I think it's a great conversation. Get all the professionals together. I think I'm finding it's very valuable. And thank you for your time, Kubes. Thank you for your time, Lou.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward for the clarity and moving forward with this.